Good afternoon. The meeting of the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging is now called to order. Commissioner Healy, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Francine, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Borgie.
Here.
Commissioner Fotheringham is absent. Commissioner Grimm.
Mighty glad to be here.
Commissioner Healing.
Here.
Commissioner Loomis.
Presente.
Commissioner Norkin. Here. Commissioner Shentes is absent. Commissioner Searden. Here. And Commissioner Silverberg. Here. Thank you.
Now is the time for public comments, and our first person to address us is our very good friend Susan Cashman, who's going to talk about Miss Senior California Pageant coming up very soon.
I am so excited to be here for the last 5 months. Got a green light.
Now we are.
Okay. For the last, I have to stand here. I want them to see the banner. For the last 5 months, I've come here every month recruiting contestants for the Miss Senior Canale Valley Preliminary Pageant. And I'm happy to say today we have 15 wonderful contestants.
All right.
I'm very, very thrilled. All paid. They're all looking forward to doing it. So now I want to recruit an audience. And I'm sure we had a wonderful group last year. We had 197, I think, Andrea, almost 200. They were kept bringing the chairs down and bringing the chairs down. So they'll bring audience, but I want people out there, especially if they've never heard of this pageant before, come and see what it's all about. It's fun, it's a great experience for senior women, and it's a great experience for seniors because it presents us in a very positive light. It's important to keep our seniors visible. And let me tell you in just a moment, we have in California here, because we are such a large state, we are the only state in the Miss Senior America pageant group that has preliminary pageants, and we hold them all the way from San Diego all the way up to Santa Clara. And last year was our first time in the venue of the Ventura County, and I must say we were welcomed with open arms. The Council on Aging, Francine Spiegel, Andrea Caval at the Global Center, Irene Brennick with the H2U group, who is our sponsor, and of course, where would we be without the Ventura County Star? They have given us so much press, so much coverage, and I've gotten almost 90% of my contestants from the coverage in the Star. But I just wanted to explain, in case some of you aren't familiar, why we hold the preliminary pageants. We hold them because, again, the state is so big that we can't just have one, like Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, all the rest of them just have one pageant, and it's their senior pageant. So from the 6 pageants that we have, the 3 top winners will go on to compete in the Miss Senior California pageant, which this year is going to be held in the Carlsbad Cultural Center in Carlsbad. And it's a beautiful venue, I understand. We're really looking forward to it. Now, whoever wins the crown, the Miss Senior California crown, then goes to Atlantic City to compete in the Miss Senior America pageant, all expenses paid. And I've gone, and it's been wonderful. I was 4th runner-up. I didn't win, but I was proud to say out of 40 states, I was 4th runner-up when I represented California. So the important thing is to keep this going. We're a nonprofit organization. All of us do this because we believe in the pageant and what it stands for, and we love it. And when you get involved with it, it is fun. It is fun, and you feel like you're doing something good for your community, something good for seniors in general. So please come. It's going to be May 23rd at the Global Senior Center at 1:30 p.m. The mayor is coming. Councilman Tom Glancy's coming. So I want to see everybody come that can possibly come and root for these women and have fun. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Susan. And pardon me. I also would throw my little recommendation out there. It's just a really good time. 15 incredible women doing things, they're dancing, singing, knitting, walking, talking, living their life. It's a beautiful example of seniors living their moments. So please come and attend. A couple of us dudes are going to be on the judging committee, so we are, by the way, open for bribe possibilities. So anyway, thank you very much, Susan. And now we move on to our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is a very good friend of the council. Let me tell you a little bit about Andrea. 8 years ago, Andrea and her husband, Peter, they're both Thousand Oaks residents. They adopted their elderly natives, and not natives, well, maybe so, their elderly neighbors, and acted as caregivers for the couple, as well as financial, legal, and medical power of attorney. After their passing, Andrea transitioned from her 30-year career in sales and marketing to build her own company, Rethinking Your Future, which offers life planning tools for individuals and employers. Please welcome Andrea Gallagher.
We okay? Hi. Thank you very much, Jim and Council. Appreciate for being here. Let me just start with a few seconds on me, because as my girlfriend says, it's all about me. So my experience and my background is in sales and marketing, as I mentioned, but one of my favorite jobs I had was with my last organization before I built my company, and I was Chief Transformation Officer. And what I had the opportunity to do was change both our employees' and our clients' vision of who we were as an organization and how we were going to operate in the future. That helped me to understand how much I really enjoyed helping bring people into a new way of thinking and to think about things that maybe they hadn't thought of in the past. Jim mentioned the experience when we moved to Thousand Oaks of us caring for our elderly neighbors, and what began as a simple invitation to a cocktail party ended up making, we made friends, and from there we became doing little errands for them, going to the grocery store. And one day, Hildy called up and she said, could you help take Fred to the hospital? He's not feeling well. As it was, Fred was Hildy's full-time caregiver, and Fred ended up spending 14 days in the hospital. They had no kids, they had no living relatives, and Peter and I became their caregivers. And we lived with Hildy for those 14 days until Fred could come home, and then we went on to take care of them until they passed. It was a life-changing experience for me. It afforded me the opportunity to share with dignity the end of a life with a few people. But more importantly, it helped drive me to my new passion, my what I hope will be my legacy someday. And that's been my business, which is really about changing lives for the better. I've had the opportunity also, I really enjoyed being a lifelong learner, a person who continues to educate themselves and pick up on my experiences along the way. And I recognized that people really didn't understand life transitions well. We have no training for it. There's lots of early learning when we're kids about what I want to be when I grow up, career counselors, colleges, on-the-job training that we get. But what happens when we turn about 50? There's nobody there to help us to have our best life in that second half of life. And so I started to do my own schooling and education, picking up pieces along the way from all sorts of wonderful organizations and learning institutions so that I could learn more about this journey. I am what you would call a social entrepreneur. And basically what that is an individual who started a business because they see a social problem and they have the business to help solve that social problem. The social problem I see is that we're all not prepared for the back half of life. And as a result of that, it's going to impact our employers, society, our families. And so if I could spread one message, it is that we should rethink our future and think about the possibilities, the probabilities, and the opportunities that we have. One last thing I just wanted to say about me is, because again, it's all about me, is that I am a very proud volunteer in the community. I am a board member of Senior Concerns. For those of you that don't know Senior Concerns, We basically are the 411 for everything senior in our community. If you have a challenge or an opportunity or a question about a senior, for a senior, with a senior, we're the place to call. And I also am a proud member of the SAMPIC organization. Again, the Council on Aging sponsors a program called SAMP, which stands for Senior Adult Master Plan. What's wonderful about that is the city is thinking about what's going to happen in the next 20 years when we double our population of seniors in our community. We have to get ready for this. And so that's what the SAMPIC organization does. I'm proud to be a member of that. Anyway, we'll get on with today. And first thing I want to talk about a little bit is why the title of the program is, What Will I Do with the Next 30 Years of My Life? Well, I picked 30 because if you happen to be a baby boomer, let's say age 50, you have on average about 30 years life expectancy left. Now, actually, what happens is you age longer, your life expectancy increases because the more you live, the more you're expected to be able to age. So as a result, if you're 50 right now, on average, you should live another 30 years. If you're 65, you should live anywhere between 17 or 20. That doesn't mean that's how long you're going to live. That means that's what the average is. But I think when folks turn 50, and I don't know about many folks in this room, but generally speaking, that's sort of a time when we reassess our lives, when we start to think about, okay, I raised my family, and I've been working at my career for the last 30 years, and I've been doing all these things, but what happens now? Something magically is supposed to occur, and we're supposed to figure out what our meaning and purpose is and what legacy we're going to leave, and it doesn't happen that way. There are a few very fortunate people that have a passion and a purpose, and it carries them through life, but other folks, it's something that we kind of have to work at a little bit. And a lot of the transitions and probabilities that occur in those next 30 years, we don't really think about. We're sort of trained as human beings to sort of live the life we have today and not contemplate things that could be happening in the future. So I'm going to spend a few minutes today and talk about the next 30 years. What can I expect? Will my money be there? How many people in the room are a little bit concerned about finances in that second half? A couple. How will I spend my time, and what will keep me motivated? I would guess that if we could answer those 4 questions of how we're going to live our lives in the next 30 years, we feel fairly well set. Make sense? Okay. Couple of statistics here just to start with. Let me talk about the generations, first of all. Boomers, and as I refer to boomers, some of you may or may not know what that is. So those are folks born 1946 to 1964. There are 78 million of us. Could I get a show of hands? How many of the silent generation in this room? Okay. How many boomers? Any Gen X or Gen Yers? Woohoo! We're going to have you speak for the entire generation here. I think if you can see the size of the baby boomer generation, 78 million, has caused unprecedented changes. So I want you to think about the kind of impact that group has made. So let me give you an example. When baby boomers arose, Pampers were created. Wonder Bread was created. And all of that because there were 78 million of those kids and their families that were clamoring to make sure that those kids had the best upbringing possible. And so now boomers are transitioning into their after 50 years. So what are the things that we're seeing huge growth in? For instance, anti-aging serums or grandparents.com. How many here are proud grandparents? Almost the whole, good percentage of the audience. What happened is with that boomer generation, with the advent of immunizations and medical advances and lower fertility of new generations and longer, stronger mortality or less mortality rates, what happened is we're on this growing longevity revolution. And we're in uncharted territory. The reality is that up until this point, the vast majority of masses died at a much earlier age. in their 70s. And now we've got folks that are obviously living into their 80s. And I often think of Willard Scott, who's on the Today Show, who talks about the folks that have turned 100, and actually they can't get all the people that turn 100 on that show anymore. There's a waiting list because there are just too many people that are in that age category. So we're seeing this tremendous tidal wave occurring, and that's going to change a lot of things in society. So let me talk about that longevity revolution for a second. In 1900, 1 in every 25 adults was over the age of 65. By 1994, 1 in 8. And by 2030, 1 in 5 adults, 20% of the population will be over the age of 65. Huge change in our demographics. We won't be creating Wonder Bread anymore. We will be creating senior products. And what's interesting is California actually has the largest number of age 65 plus population in the country. So what that means is we have the largest number. Would anybody know what the largest percentage is? What state has? Florida, exactly. But by far we have the largest, with over 1 million more than any other state. So we clearly have an opportunity here as a state to make sure that we're prepared. Okay, so let's talk for a minute, if we can, about the things that we're going to expect. We talked about those 4 questions. So let's start with, let's do a little history lesson here for a minute. In 2005, we'll take a brief trip back about 5 years. Our unemployment rate was 6%. For most of us, we had great company medical care. Even retiree medical care was covered by our employer. Our house was our nest egg. Housing values had appreciated tremendously. Home values were through the roof. Our investments were doing well, and we had great confidence in our banks. Let's fast forward to today. The median household net worth, we'll start looking at the brick house over there. Housing net worth fell 25% from 05 to 09 for folks within the 45 to 54-year-old age range. So our housing values fell 25%. Over 1 million homeowners are either delinquent or in foreclosure. Our unemployment rate, if you count unemployment and underemployment, is over 20% in the country. We have a 25% increase in those folks that are taking Social Security at the first opportunity. There are 10,000 people a day signing up for Social Security. To keep Medicare solvent past 2017, we need either one of 2 things. We need a 122% increase in premiums, or we need a 51% decrease in hospital stays. So we can see things have changed dramatically. The other thing that's changed is our view of old. Anybody know who that is on the left? That is, on the left is Whistler's mother. So let me tell you an interesting story about Whistler's mother. Whistler actually wanted to use a different model for his portrait, but she never showed up for the photo shoot, or for the painting shoot, if you want to call it. So what happened is he asked his mom if she would do it, and she said, "I will do it." His intent was to have that model standing, except that Whistler's mother at the dear old age of 65 couldn't stand for very long, which is why she's seated in that chair. Let's look at that. She was age 65. Here is Sophia Loren, age 75. At 60, she was nominated for a Golden Globe. At 61, she starred in Grumpier Old Men. At 75, she was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award for the movie 9. And right now in 2010, she's shooting her own 2-part biopic. So at 75, is Sophia Loren old? No. So our view of old is definitely changing. Our view of family is changing. This is one of the first 6th-generation families. So let me tell you what that means. When I grew up, I lived in a 3-generation family. I had my mom and, we were the kids, we had my mom and dad and my grandma and grandpa. By the time my sisters had children, my grandma and grandpa had passed. So we were only ever 3 generations. This is the first sixth-generation family. There is a study going on of the sixth-generation families that are now just coming about because people are living longer. So let me introduce you to these folks. They live in England. Little baby Lila Mae, she's 6 months old. To her left is Dorothy. Dorothy's 103. To the right is Mama Hannah, little Lila Mae's mom. She's 19. Up above her is Natalie. She's 34. Margaret in the middle there is 77, and Lucy is 57. Think about sixth-generation families, what that's going to mean in terms of caregiving, in terms of grandparenting, great-grandparenting. And just think when this becomes multiple marriages, what happens? A lot of complexity out there in terms of family. I'll talk a little, too, about how the workplace has changed. And this is probably one that, particularly for baby boomers, is sort of that, I'll call it an aha moment. Because I think in this last 18 months or 2 years, where we've had so many layoffs and so much unemployment, that view of the world has changed dramatically. And it's only when you're in it do you kind of understand it. So let me take a moment and talk to you about that. Right now, boomers are going through major job transitions. This is a study actually from 06 that they just updated in 09. But 40% have changed their jobs in the last year. 45% have had a major change in financial education, a financial situation. And many have had a major career change. It doesn't matter where you're at as a boomer, at your work life, whether you're at the top of your game, whether you've been downsized, whether you're starting a new career, whether you're retraining, whether you're returning to college, or whether you're starting a new job in a new industry, you're probably part of a common experience because so many of us are going through all these experiences. The challenge is this is a tremendous amount of upheaval and change because when your work, many times when people's work changes, their entire role in society changes. I know for me, when I went from being in a corporate America job to running my own business, in that transition in between, people would say to me, what do you do? And I was at a loss in between one or the other. I'm following my passion and purpose, but I haven't quite figured out what that is yet. Because what we do really, in many ways, talks to the role we have in society. This was a study that came out in Business Week back in January of this year. Many of us, I think of the working world as a 40-plus hour a week job where we work for one employer that we've worked for a long time, and we are part of that organization, whether we are doing factory work or we're leading a team. Right now, 26% of the U.S. workforce is temporary. So what does that mean? I have a friend, his name is Gordon. Gordon was laid off his job maybe about a year ago, and Gordon is now a consultant. So all that sounds great, right? So I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to manage my own time. I'm going to have my own clients. I don't have to have anybody doing a performance review on me anymore. All of those things that you thought about. I don't have to have some crazy boss who changes every few months. So let me tell you about Gordon's job, though, as a consultant. He has no retirement plan unless he creates one himself. There is no company retirement plan for him, no 401k, no pension program. Gordon's easy to lay off because there is no fixed cost associated with him. When the project's done, Gordon's job is done, and so now he has to go look for a new one. There are no fixed costs associated with Gordon, meaning that he doesn't have an office at a location, at an employer location. He doesn't have a phone. He doesn't have a travel expense account. He covers his own health insurance, so the company's not covering that. He can take no sick days. If he takes sick days, he doesn't get paid for them because he's paid for the time that he's working. He also doesn't have any vacation time unless he chooses to take it himself and not take salary because he has no paid vacation. These folks, which are 26% of the U.S. workforce today, have the highest level of anxiety and depression out there. We have gone from a corporate world or an employer world where 90% of the employees were permanent fixtures within the organization to now 26% of those are temporary workforce. This is the norm. if you've been laid off and you start looking for another job, the chance is that more than likely you will be working in a temporary position for a period of time. It is just more common than not at this point. Okay, so for a minute I just want to recap what we can expect. If we're 50, we'll probably live another 30 years. We have a tidal wave of population that'll be aging in the next 20 years. The question is, who's prepared for it? Are ourselves prepared for it? Our cities, our employers? Our economy is going to change in ways we couldn't predict. I doubt in 2005, when we had 6% unemployment, that we would think in the next 5 years we'd be having 20% unemployment and underemployment. Our definition of old is changing. Our definition of family is changing. And the future of work is part-time, just-in-time, temporary, and they're no longer our big brother. They're not there to provide pension plans and Medicaid, medical benefits, and so on and so forth. So a lot of change going on. So let's talk about the question of, will my money be there? Probably the number one question that comes up when folks are talking about their future. And those numbers that I have there, at least the first two, the 80,000 and the 250,000, I want you to think about a little bit as I talk about this. Unfortunately, as Americans, we're much less prepared than our counterparts globally for our future. Maybe because in many countries there are government pensions that are available that necessarily we don't have here. But let me give you some scary statistics. 1 in 2 people have over $80,000 in retirement savings, which means that 1 in 2 people have less than $80,000 in retirement savings. That does not include their house. 80% haven't calculated their retirement needs. So what does that mean? That means they haven't given any, put a pencil to paper and said, what am I going to need to live on as I age when I'm no longer earning my income? What happens when all I have is Social Security and whatever savings, investment income I have? 50% have no general financial education. I'd say, one of the largest disservices we've done to the American public is we moved from a pension program to a 401k type program, which moved the onus of managing money in the public sector from the company, who had all sorts of paid financial planners to be able to do that, into the hands of the general public, who most oftentimes don't have the financial education to be able to manage a portfolio. But it's what we give them. A statistic that scares the heck out of me when I read it is that most employees, when they join a company, and they may join a 401k program, for instance, they sign up for what percentage they want into what fund, and they never change it ever again. Now, the good news in all of that is if you didn't change it from where we were a few years ago to where we are today, you've probably recouped some of the loss that you had. So some of our inaction actually has benefited us. 1 in 7 have stopped or reduced savings in their retirement plans. And part of that is because of debt. 1 in 3 say that debt is a key obstacle to saving. So clearly, we have a challenge here particularly as a boomer generation, to move ourselves out of debt, move ourselves into an opportunity of saving more for our future. Our terms for how we think about things have changed dramatically. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, my mom and dad both worked, but my dad was a lighting engineer for Sylvania. His top salary he made as an engineer was $35,000 a year. He had a pension, a company pension. He had an IRA. He had company medical benefits, and he had retiree medical benefits when he did retire. He had a nice house that really had appreciated tremendously during that period of time. I think they bought their house for $11,000 and sold it for $130,000 or $140,000. And my dad worked for Sylvania for 25 years before he got what they call the golden handshake, which my dad came home and announced one day he got the golden handshake. And let's look at what's happening now. We have much weaker home equity than we did in the past. The vast majority of the boomer population is in debt. As we know, we have very unstable returns in our investment portfolio. Individuals are now responsible for saving for their future when they weren't in the past. Free agency is what I was talking about in terms of having a temporary workforce, that necessarily you may not have a permanent job, the next job you have. And that right now there are very, very few companies that are offering, or organizations that are offering, long-term retiree medical benefits. So the world has changed from the experience that my dad had. Unpredictable health events top the list of fears of our generation. It's driving financial insecurity. Well, you can take a look right there. I won't read them all, but the top financial worry, medical expenses not being covered by insurance. I can't tell you every day how many people I meet that when you start talking to them about long-term care expenses, meaning assisted living or some in-home care, non-medical care, that they believe that it is covered under their medical insurance plan, which it is not. And that many times is a tremendous rude awakening for folks as they're thinking about their future. But clearly you can see that folks are concerned that their health is real. They're going to have health issues and live long enough that they're going to potentially outlive their money. Very, very major concern. And that's why we've moved from a boomer society of all about accumulating wealth, right? And early on in the boomer society, that's what it was all about when we were all growing up as boomers. And now it's actually about what we call financial peace of mind. Do I just have enough to get by? Can I get through? I can't talk about will my money be there if we don't talk about the rules of retirement. I could have easily titled my company Rethinking Your Retirement, but I personally don't believe in the word retirement anymore, that it's going to be a word that is going to resonate with folks in the future. And I say that because the term retirement means so many different things to so many different people at this point, and the word itself is changing dramatically. I actually think we'll have a new word for whatever this life stage is going to be in the future, but it won't be retirement. So this is Ted. Ted retired a long time ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, but decided he was bored to tears at home and decided he wanted to get out with people and became a Walmart employee. According to AARP, Walmart is one of the #1 employers for folks over 50 in the country. And this is Sarah. Sarah is a grant writer for her nonprofit. She does that on a volunteer basis, but it gives her a tremendous amount of meaning and purpose in her life. Why don't we identify with the word retirement? Well, let's look in the dictionary, or as we used to say in our old days, in our Funkin' Wagnalls, which I don't even think they have a Funkin' Wagnalls anymore. So what is the definition? It means pull back, move away, move backward, dispose of something. She finally retired her old coat, or lose interest. He retired from life after his wife died, or withdrawing. The enemy retired. I don't think any of that terminology resonates with any of us. So that word in and of itself is something that I think the boomer generation is not tying themselves to. So let's talk for a minute about how you would spend your time in retirement. And for the purpose of this, I'll just mirror some of the comments that I've heard from folks. I hear both sides of the coin. I hear freedom, and I hear opportunity, and I hear worry and anxiousness and challenges. And so one of the things that we need to do is think about what that definition is, what it was before and what it means today. In the old days, in my dad's day, as I mentioned, my dad spent 25 years with Sylvania. He was 57 when he was offered his golden handshake, which now I think I'm close to 57, and I think, my gosh, you can't even imagine retiring at 57. At that point in time, he and my mom bought another home in Cape Cod, a place that they wanted to retire. They bought a single-family home. They bought a one-story home. They were minutes from medical attention and all of their necessary needs. It all made a whole lot of sense. They weren't too far from their kids and grandkids. My dad had retiree medical benefits, which paid for between that and Medicare allowed him to have an HMO. And they traveled to Europe. They became volunteers for the local national park. They did all of the things that a typical retiree might do in that time. Let's think of what retirement means today for a lot of folks. It's really about new work. That work doesn't necessarily need to be paid work. I have a friend. Her name is Carol Freeman. She's the president of Senior Concerns, and she's allowed me the opportunity. I have asked in the past if I could use her as a shining example of the future. Carol at one time was the CEO of Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital. And when it came time for her to think about new work, she decided she wanted to redirect her energy. So she spent a few months figuring out what that might be. And then she started to gain some learning in the industry. She thought maybe she might like to work for a nonprofit. So she went into courses. She kept her nursing license. She boned up on chronic diseases and dementia, and things that would be important for her in her new career at Senior Concerns. And she was able to reposition her role as president of Senior Concerns. It gave her an opportunity to fulfill a passion that she had, some new work in her community, provide meaning in what she did every day, gave her tremendous new learning. Carol is to me, the poster child of continuous learning. She is, fortunately for her, not part of the sandwich generation, meaning that she doesn't have an adult child at home, as Carol and I talk about her future, she's one of those individuals that I think is always going to be continuing to do something with meaning and purpose. I mentioned earlier that my mom and dad moved in and determined that they wanted to age in place. My dad, about 10 years ago, developed Parkinson's, and that little house that was one story and perfect for them was great up until it required him to be in a wheelchair. And there was a downstairs basement where my mom did laundry, and that was not going to work over time. So being the engineer my dad was, we went through a little spreadsheet of all of his opportunities. Do I live with a child? Do I live in assisted living? Do I move to an independent community, age 55 plus community? And actually, my parents truly had intended on aging in place. But once my dad developed his Parkinson's to the point where he could no longer, it did not become an option for them. So they've actually moved to an age 55 plus community in a little one-story townhouse sort of thing, 5 minutes from my sister. So they now have so much more socialization than they had before. My sister's 5 minutes away to be able to help them go to doctor's appointments and such. So that idyllic opportunity of what retirement can be works for a period of time, but it has to change over time, and we have to think about all of those changes that may occur. Here's another interesting statistic. The retirement age is decreasing. So let's think about this. Given our economic environment, we've probably all heard this 100 times, our 401ks are now 201ks, and rising healthcare costs, why in the world would the retirement age be decreasing? Well, we don't control our timing. The reality is that 40% of retirees will leave the workforce before they ever planned. You might ask why. Health and disability, having to care for a spouse or a family member, work-related reasons like a layoff, or obsolete skills. Some things we can control, some things we can't. Part of our challenge will be to think about in the future, what are those things, if my timing is not controlled by me, what kind of plans do I need to put in place now? If I do have obsolete skills, what can I do to transition those, to gain some new learning into skills that will be valuable in the future? I always want to talk a little bit about caregiving. There's a wonderful quote, and I'm totally going to screw it up, but by Rosalind Carter, who says that you're either going to be a caregiver, will be cared for, I could go on, but pretty much there's not a person in this world that won't be touched by caregiving at some point in their lives or another. And let me give you, the view of caregiving is that lovely picture on the left, where we're caring for our mom. or one of our parents or in-laws. The reality is that caregiving goes much deeper and broader than that. Right now, 2.4 million families in the United States are run by a grandparent, meaning that grandparents are raising their grandchildren. That growth has been 20% over the last 10 years and continues to grow. They comprise 7% of all families right now. So probably something people hadn't thought about or predicted but may occur. Again, our viewpoint of caregiving is that parent or grandparent. The reality is that our siblings are with us much longer than our parents are. And in many, many instances, those relationships become caregiving relationships over time. According to a recent study by Pew Research, 13% of parents with grown children have the kids at home. There was a Monster, everybody know Monster, the job search engine, study of 2009. They talked to graduates of school in 2008 and asked them in 2009 what percentage of those kids, either college or college if they had graduated from college, high school if they had not intended to go to college, and asked them what percentage of them were living at home with their parents. The percentage was 42%. So there are a lot of caregiving opportunities out there that necessarily we might not think about. And caregiving in and of itself can be quite a challenge. I'll talk for a minute about, again, another individual named Donna. Donna's obviously female. She's 46. She works full-time. She cares for her mom. Her mom's an hour away from where she is. The challenge is that because she's the only one caring for her mom, she comes in late to work. She has to leave early. She has to leave for doctor's appointments, for therapist visits, for a myriad of responsibilities that she has with her mom. She's really depressed and tremendously anxious. She's actually concerned that her work is going to basically tell her, you're not with us mentally. We're thinking about making some changes in your job. She's wondering if maybe she needs to quit because she doesn't feel like she's doing her mother full service or her company full service. She's aging prematurely. She has an affected immune system. She'll have an affected immune system for 5 to 7 years past the time that she's caring for her mom. Once her mom passes, she will have an affected immune system for another 5 to 7 years. This is not a short-term situation. She has chronic conditions more than twice the rate of non-caregivers. These family caregivers do 80% of the caregiving in the country. 80%. How are we going to replace that? And the question is, if indeed, and again, with the doubling of the senior population at least, who's going to care for us? So 40% of us actually believe our children should take care of us in our old age. So the real question becomes, so what if we fail to plan? What if we don't rethink our future? Well, we've got 78 million people, a tsunami coming down the pike. Half of the states in America will double their population of those age 65 plus in the next 20 years, California being one of them. So what if we don't plan for either a new financial situation or a new work situation, how we learn, how we care for our elders, our own health and housing, our lifestyle strategies. And that is what Rethinking Your Future is about. It's about getting people to think in a way that necessarily they might not have in the past. So here's our first option, right? We bury our head in the sand, which is a true boomer characteristic right there. We're gonna pretend it never happens. We're not gonna age. We're definitely gonna be healthy and good and be non-wrinkled for the rest of our lives. But that probably isn't gonna work so well. There was one of a recent Harvard Business Review study basically talked about the benefits of creating goals. Now, any of us in a work situation probably recognize that we're creating goals, right? Almost every, whether we're part of Council on Aging or whether we're part of the city or whether we're with another organization, we're generally speaking creating goals. 83% of people don't set goals, though, for themselves. They may set a goal. It may be that I'm going to go on vacation to X place. My sister is just taking her family to Italy this year, and I would say if she has spent an hour, she spent hundreds of hours planning that trip. But the time and attention that we spend on planning our trip to Italy is not near the kind of time and attention that we're spending on thinking about what could be a whole nother back half of life. The opportunity is that people that do set goals for themselves are 10 times more likely to achieve success than those that don't. So the numbers speak for themselves. It probably makes sense for us to start thinking and creating some goals for ourselves. So I am a proponent of life planning, and Rethinking Your Future is all about life planning. So what is that? People say to me, I never heard of life planning. What is that? And I would tell you that it's a practice that really started with life coaching, and it probably started about 10 years ago. And it was started with the thought in the process that healthy people, mentally healthy people, need some help too. Sometimes they need help in allowing themselves to live more fully and on purpose and in the moment, to live within their values, meaning that to live in a way that aligns with the things that they find most important, about looking into the future, seeing all the possibilities, the probabilities, and then taking some action. Being prepared so that you can fulfill your expectations and your dreams and handle many of those situations that are going to come down the road by making some smart life choices. So we have an opportunity here. We have what Ken Dykewald likes to call a longevity bonus, which basically means we have another 20 years past our age 77 there, to 97. So traditionally, because we didn't live that long, we had 3 segments of life, or life stages: the learning stage, the working stage, and the resting stage. But if you had an extra 20 years, where would you like to put them? How about if you took from age 45 to 50 and went back to learning? And then you took age 62 to 70 to rest, and then you went back to work again. There's nothing that says that we can't look at those areas of our lives and say where we want to put that time. This is what the old world was like, but we have the longevity bonus. And so it gives us the opportunity to think and to plan where we want to put that time. So I'll end here in a minute and just talk about what Rethinking Your Future is about, because I get excited about helping people to build better lives. So one of the first things that I would make a recommendation to anybody, rethinking your future or not, is really sort of taking that evaluation of where you're at. Take an assessment. Where do I stand in terms of understanding the types of knowledge or preparedness I might need in typical areas? Hopefully some of the statistics or things that I showed you today are things that you didn't know, or that kind of created an aha moment, or caused you to think about something that you might want to change as you look towards your future. The next thing you'd probably want to do is explore your values and your purpose and your expectations. I did this presentation not that long ago to a group at a senior center, and I would say about 5 or 6 of the folks came up to me. They absolutely had to be over age 75. And their comment to me was, and many of them were women whose husbands had recently passed, and they said, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my meaning was. I thought it was going to come to me, but it hasn't, and I feel so lost, and I need help. You know why? Because this is, we had lessons on child rearing, and we had lessons on, when we were in college to build our skills, and we had lessons at work. But the reality is we don't have lessons about this stuff, and it doesn't just come automatically to many of us. So the opportunity is to explore your values and your purpose and what expectations you have. And I'd say the second thing I find with a lot of folks is they have great intentions. Folks will hear a presentation like this, or they'll read a book, and they have all the greatest intentions of creating a new life, or adding some things to their life, or starting to develop a plan for the future, and it just doesn't get done because life gets in the way, because we're all 100% busy as it is right now. So having somebody to hold you accountable is a great way to make that happen, so that you can make sure that you get an opportunity to live your dreams. So as we rethink about our future, I'll leave you with a couple of things. I think it's really about new ways of learning and earning and contributing to society, whether those are new ways of working, project work, or social entrepreneurism, whether it be improving your life habits like your health choices or your savings, or designing a life plan for yourself, whether it be about learning or transferring knowledge, whether that be through mentorship or grandparenting. And lastly, I believe it's about contributing to your community, and that being part of the change, the positive change of your community. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. If I get 1,000 times to be able to share with people the opportunity that they have to rethink their future in a way that will help them to make smart life choices and to follow their passion and purpose, I'm excited to do that. Thanks for the opportunity.
Does anyone have any questions of Andrea? So you're saying that even I, an ordinary citizen over 70 years old, could benefit from training such as this?
Absolutely. My guess is you have a lot of these same questions that others do.
The absolutely frightening thing about that is that I'm into my 70s and still have this, what the heck am I going to do over the next 5 or 6, 10 years? Yes, I'm very much in the middle of that and very much in need of coaching. So,
I'm here for you, Jim.
And baby.
Hi.
Any questions at all?
Mel has a question.
Very nice, Andrea. Very sobering. The concern that I see, when you look out and have a vision of where we are and where my kids are, and where one of them was, and into this, maelstrom, if you will. The concern that we have is that there may be external factors. There may be external factors which we're experiencing today, the healthcare business, just everything else within the country, unfortunately. We're undergoing severe social change, economic change. My concern is that if I went to you, I'd say, but look at all these external factors. How can I deal with these external factors and factor them into what's happening? Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot. I may go down path one and bing. And now, obviously, your answer is you can just stay home and sit there and do nothing, or you can, try something. Mm-hmm. But I think right now that's where the community, the country is.
Right. Yeah, I would agree that change has been so dynamic and dramatic over the last few years that there's a lot of folks that are just immobilized to do much because they don't know where things are going to turn. The one thing that I would say, some of those sobering facts, if we are a generation of those in debt, then clearly that's one of the things that we need to move towards, not being in debt. Common sense, right? Makes sense, but necessarily not the case, because there's a lot of people that aren't doing that. If there's an opportunity to refine your skills, I have in our workshop, we talk a lot about jobs that are no longer, and there's many folks that sort of crept up on them, that they were in a career or job that all of a sudden, or what felt like all of a sudden to them, but was obsolete. So it's really about looking at those changes that are occurring, because by the time, there's this wonderful old fable about the frog that's in the pot, and if you put him in the pot and then you start to boil the water, the frog never knows that it's getting boiled for dinner. However, that if you toss the frog in the boiling pot, they get it and they jump right out. The reality is that all of us are sort of in the pot, and the burner is being turned up. So our challenge is to take a look into the future a little bit, see some of those things that are changing, and anticipate how those might affect us. There are some good, smart choices you can make right from the beginning, but other things we learn. The last comment I would make to you is if there's one skill that we can all practice that's going to be able to help us as we age, that is resilience. And there are particular components of resilience that are the things that if you were to ask folks, what is it that got you through some of the tremendous lows in their life, they would tell you that it's resilience.
But that's true. But some of us older folks here who remember a bad time during the Depression, it was all about resilience then.
Mm-hmm.
And when one encounters the baby boomer community and, you know, children of my friends, and we tell them about, you know, the old days, the hard times and all that, and they just like, well, I don't know what that's all about. Thank God that's true. But I'm not sure how resilience works. I'm not sure if we've been, well, those folks that are not working now are being tested for resilience.
Yeah.
It's not clear how well this resilience will work, and what will motivate folks to be resilient. Obviously, you need to have a job if you put food on the table. I mean, that builds resilience, but it's not clear if there's enough out there to build resilience.
Yeah, it's a mindset. It's an everyday practice. It's a way of thinking and being and doing that necessarily some folks have and others don't, but the skill can be honed. So I agree with you, though. I think that as a boomer generation, we've led a pretty good life thus far, and we've not experienced some of those dramatic shifts and changes that have occurred in earlier generations, but this may be our shift, or a shift may come another 20 years from now, but it will come.
There's something else that concerns me. I admit that I get terribly irked every time I see the commercial on television that shows two guys sitting with their back toward hiring managers, and the conversation goes sort of like this. He has the skills, and he's the person with the gray hair, and the other person counters by saying, yeah, but he has the looks I want. And I'm afraid that we haven't got rid of those kinds of ageist ideas. And when we have those kinds of ageist ideas in the workplace, also coupled with, here's another conversation, how are we going to cut our overheads and maintain our technological edge? Simple. A salary of $100,000 generates 2 college graduates from XYZ Technical University at $50,000 apiece. And because they're new, they'll be very happy to work for a couple of years. In fact, we can say that they're not vested in their health plans for a couple of years. And so our overheads drop down immediately. And unfortunately, the government plays into this a lot, particularly in aerospace. And to bring it up because it needs to be said, there are very large aerospace concerns that have gone the consulting route, and they've made their nut by not offering the kinds of benefits, and by taking a look at somebody who may be 42 years old and at $80,000 and saying, gee, we don't need you anymore, and then 6 months later we find that that person's job has been filled by 2 other people who earn $40,000. So not only does the target population that you're talking to have to watch its P's and Q's and plan, but then some of us need to stand up on our hind feet and say, look, government, look, industry, you got to play here also. You have to level the working field a bit. Okay, my rant.
Yeah, there's 3 dynamics going on in the working world right now that are sort of creating this perfect storm. One is that, honestly, age bias is still out there. It just is. I have a friend, she has a company called Ageless in America on the internet, and there's wonderful myths and tips about aging workers, and the tips that aging workers can use to counteract some of those misperceptions that are out there. The second challenge is that people are necessarily, boomers feel somewhat entitled. I'll give you an example. I have a lot of friends out there that have really robust resumes, that they've been in great jobs, being paid lots of money with lots of responsibility, and their expectation is that the next job that I get will be commensurate with the job I had before. But the reality is, your value is this snapshot today in the marketplace. It's not what you made 6 months ago. It's not what you made 3 weeks ago. It's what skills you can bring to this new organization. But I will tell you, turnabout is fair play, because by the year 2030, we will have a shortage of about 5 million jobs in the U.S. And the reality is because the boomer generation, if they can, will be retiring, whatever retiring means, and there are not enough of that earlier generation to replace them. So many companies are looking at two things now. They're looking how to retain and attract the mature worker in a way that helps them with the bottom line, either through part-time work, consulting work, all that sort of stuff. But they're also looking at how I work intergenerationally. We now have 4 generations in the workplace that we never had before. And there is a huge dynamic difference between those 4. So, Len, I think there's some good parts of that and opportunities with that, but you're right on.
I need you to walk up to the podium to speak, please. Walk up to the podium to speak into the microphone, unless you want to repeat her question.
Sure, go ahead. I'll repeat your question for you.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the things that people generally don't plan for is that they are going to become a caregiver or need a caregiver. So when you start to think of those two possibilities, it really changes some of the dynamics in terms of where I'm going to work, how I'm going to work, what kinds of things I'm going to need to be thinking about in the future. If I am cared for, where am I going to live? How is it going to be paid for? How am I going to continue to have my independence as much as possible, have choice as much as possible? All of those things are about planning, and there's ways in which you can anticipate some of that and plan for some of that. You know, most of these situations that cause us stress are situations that occur in crisis point, right? All of a sudden, something happens, somebody has a stroke, a heart attack, whatever, and we've become a caregiver, or we are being cared for. But if you can start to put a couple of plans in place along the way, that transition can be much less emotional, much less traumatic, and financially you might be prepared a little bit better for some of those things.
Yeah.
Sure.
I came to USA in 1990. So I had my degree, MD, Doctor of Science, also was in law at the High Court of Bombay.
She is.
Stand at the podium
Yes.
so we can turn the mic on.
Otherwise, we have dead TV.
Hello. One of your ex-colleagues. I was on the Council on Aging also, and humbly proud because you, in 1996, gave me the award of Senior of the Year for the work that I've been doing since my arrival in USA in 1990 February. First thing that I did was I went to wonderful senior concern, our senior center, Global Senior Center, and there to know more about RSVP, Retired Senior Volunteer Program. Because I had the experience of nearly 20 years of doing volunteer work in India, right from the age of 45 to 65, because I'm born in 1924, past your age groups that you mentioned. And invariably, when I reflect back, I always said, the formula of H multiplied by D is equal to P, given to me by an American behavioral scientist. Your habits multiplied by your emotional drive is your personality, is your performance. I had no money here and I could not do anything else. So I went to RSVP, said, I'm willing to give all my expertise, my experience, absolutely free. I said, join RSVP. And the first assignment that was given to me was fold bandages for the Red Cross. I was happily doing that, but I offered to them that I've done my ballroom dancing, the bronze, silver and gold in India, and I can teach them dancing, no charge, be a volunteer work. And I continue to do it every Wednesday morning, giving them a class of fitness and dancing. I got a chance to go up to the Learning Tree University, gave them my credentials, said, yes, you can teach meditation and yoga. So for 4 years I taught them meditation and yoga also. At the same time, I had to eat, because without food and shelter and clothing, you can't possibly exist anywhere, even in the richest country of the world. And there, in 1996, when I got my Senior of the Year award, I got my citizenship also in that same week when you awarded me the Senior of the Year. There, I saw that what I could do best was any work. So for the school, crossing guard, the humblest duty of all. As a retired MD also, that was, said yes. So I started doing the work at a new elementary school, Langrange Elementary School, which came up in 1998, but before that at Meadows. Immediately in the very first week I went to the principal and said, I have taught yoga and meditation at the Learning Tree University. As a volunteer, in between time, between morning duty and the afternoon duty, I devote myself to giving little kids, kindergarten kids also, because yoga is nothing else but a path of constant communion with cosmic consciousness, which is only possible if you can elicit relaxation response, which our Dr. Herbert Benson at the Mind and Body Institute also is doing, which Maharishi Mahesh Yogi gave as TM to all the institutions. And for 20 years before coming here, I was giving free in India to the biggest corporations and the CEOs, and conducted a seminar also for 4 days. So I would always tell everybody, a child or an adult or anything, if you can have a calm mind, which is the fountainhead of creativity, practice a simple little habit which is very easy to elicit relaxation response, as Dr. Herbert Benson says. Nothing else to do except you make a decision and a resolution. No two meditators will meditate alike. We all meditate in our own unique manner. Thinking process, software, thoughts for your computer brain. Learn to just relax. So 25 Stress Busters is our flyer at Global Center, where I give dance lessons, taken from Mayo Clinic. So this thing is which I would request you and recommend you. So many students coming to you, and you're helping so many people, for all the caregivers and all. It's a wonderful thing. And I hope to live for another 20 years, keep serving senior concerns as well as Global Senior Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now that's an example of resilience.
That is, exactly.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Nancy.
Andrea, just to confirm your resilience thing, I totally believe that. And I just saw a study about 2 or 3 months ago about people who had lived to be 100, and they all had resilience. None of them that they did the study on, it was a pretty good sized group, had been illness free. They had gone through Parkinson's and heart disease and cancer and this and that, but they managed to come through. They just kept coming through. And I visit seniors for the long-term care ombudsman program, and it's amazing how much easier it is for the ones who can manage to have that resilience just to come back. My question for you, and you may not know the answer to this because I didn't ask you in the head or anything, but Do you have any idea what percentage of people, adults say 65 and over, 75 and over, end up in any kind of a commercial facility, assisted living, boarding care, nursing home? Do you have any idea what that percentage is now? I don't, and I know.
I don't at this point, and it's changing dramatically,
Yes.
obviously, as we speak, because more people are looking to age in place than to be in a facility. I don't know that percentage.
Okay, I'm interested. Thanks.
I have kind of a follow-up question on the example you used with your parents. You said he was an engineer, and I guess he went through all the math. So it must have come out that going to a place where you could move into assisted living, et cetera, was more efficient and less expensive than trying to age in place and have services brought to them. Is that?
Yeah, so what they live in right now is an age 55 plus community. Many people in California may know it as like a Del Webb, even though it's not Del Webb. So these are little town homes that are built with what they call universal design, which, if you know what that is wider hallways and all sorts of things that help to enable folks to be able to live in their home with assisted devices and that sort of thing. So they moved into that type of a community 5 minutes from my sister. We looked at many options. That option allowed them, my mom's, I often say about my mom that she could run a company tomorrow. So she's fully fit and cognitive and everything. And being in a facility with my dad might have not been the best thing for her. She loves to garden and socialization. So the opportunity was to find a place where my dad could get the care that he needed, where they could live independently, where they could be around family, where they had socialization, and the cost of that, and that over time they could bring in a caregiver as necessary to help with my father's needs that my mom's not going to be able to for the long haul. So as we looked at all those opportunities from a cost standpoint, actually, we looked at many different things from, environment and socialization and costs and so on and so forth. And the cost is about the same by the time it's all over and done with. But the reality is that for their lifestyle, for their emotional health, for their socialization, this was the best option for them.
It wasn't necessarily a financial decision. It was
a combination decision.
Okay. Andrea, thank you very, very much for giving all this to us. You're an absolute wonder. We're going to move on now to the rest of our business portion of the meeting. Our next item up will be Nancy Healy is going to tell us what's going on with the Senior of the Year.
The Senior of the Year dinner, I still have to look it up, is going to be June 3rd. And we now have 5 very, very qualified nominees from the different local agencies. I'd just like to announce their names. Patricia Sciano of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, Jane Da Silva of Buena Vista Hospice, Julia Hans from the nominated by the Global Senior Center, Porter Ellis from Senior Concerns, and Tom Garcia from the Area Housing Authority. So these people, it's a huge honor. This is one of those cases. It really is a huge honor just to receive the nomination of the agency that you work for. And there will be interviews, and we will be talking to the people, and the winner will be announced at the dinner. However, every one of these people really have to see themselves as winners because they each do different things. And it's a huge honor to have a volunteer group like Senior Concerns, Carol is here, nominate somebody for all the good they've done for the year. So congratulations to these nominees.
Oh, absolutely. One of the great joys of doing this job and being on the Council on Aging is participating in the Senior Year event. It's just grand to spend several hours talking to these people who spend endless hours making other people's lives better. I mean, you can't get better vibes than that. So you'll hear more about the Senior of the Year event and the banquet and all that downstream, but keep alert to the concept because it's really a very wonderful event. All right, let's move on to our Senior Adult Master Plan. Commissioner Silverberg.
Thank you, Jim. We're supposed to have 2 reports coming from 2 areas, and that have from the implementation committees, one on transportation and one on volunteerism. So far, we have one of those people present. But before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to say that the SAMP implementation committee teams have all finished their drafts. They were gotten in very expeditiously, and we want to thank the community. Wants to thank and the Council on Aging, as well as the city and the city council, for the dedication that these folks have shown in putting together something that required a lot of skill and a lot of energy and a lot of time. And so we all appreciate that. Right now it's all being assembled, and sometime, I don't know, maybe in June, beginning of June, we'll be presenting this to the city council. And I just want you to know that we take considerable pride in the work that has been done. It's just excellent. And we have two of those folks here. One is you'll hear from, and he is Chuck Herrera, who chairs the volunteer committee, and the other has been already identified today, and that's our own Carol Freeman here, who, in addition to working and finding a new career, has time to give to the volunteer community, and we appreciate it because she brings an awful lot to us. So, anyway, 6 months ago, I didn't even know who Chuck Herrera was, and I said, "Who's that?" And then, in a matter of a few months, I realized that, again, through our RSVP program, Cindy Powers searching for talent out there, volunteers, and by the way, those out there, we need more, and you'll be hearing more about that, brought to us Chuck Herrera. And so I want to commend RSVP and Cindy Powers and thank Chuck for being here. Chuck, I believe, was in, I'm not sure what was in sales management, et cetera, and you've brought those skills to us. So, Chuck, tell us about what's happening on volunteerism. By the way, we have 6, and volunteerism is 1.
Chuck, just before you start, I happen to be the council liaison to the volunteer committee, and I really want to thank Chuck because we have a great group, and we have somebody else here that was in our group or has been working with us, and you've just done a dynamite job. He comes in, he has great ideas. He doesn't just have the ideas and then not do anything. He has ideas and actually starts them and follows through and finishes them up and redoes them. So you've just done a great job, and I think we have a wonderful product thanks to you and everybody who's helped us.
My apologies, Nancy, for not letting you introduce him.
No, that's okay. I didn't need to do that. But I just wanted to tell you what a good job you've done.
And by the way, we have advisors, 6 advisors from the Council on Aging who work with the volunteer committees, and Nancy's one of them. So.
And we have another member that was here, Corky Grimm, is here with us today, and she was one of our members. We've just had a very good group, and we really appreciate all the work. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon. When the volunteering committee was first organized, we had many ideas we wanted to explore. Once those ideas were set in place and organized, it was just a matter of what direction we really wanted to go in. Right now, the committee has a plan that we think will both serve the community. Like I said from the start, we had many ideas, but none really sounded and felt right. Today, there are many nonprofit and volunteer organizations in the Conejo Valley. Unfortunately, many of them are unknown by the public, and not a lot of them are really linked together. So how do we connect these organizations so the community can access and inquire about them if they're looking to volunteer in some kind of capacity? We have an idea and concept that we came up with. It's a Thousand Oaks Resource Center located here in the city of Thousand Oaks, where seniors, boomers, youth, and even youth organizations can inquire and ask questions about the different opportunities there are in the Conejo Valley. By utilizing the center, individuals and organizations can contact the Resource Center by dialing a toll-free telephone number. Later, it can be remotely accessed by a member of the volunteer staff. Questions can be asked by the individuals and answered by the center. In turn, the individuals can be referred to an organization that interests them. Another way of potential volunteers contacting the center would be by accessing a website. On the website, people will be able to do their own research on the nonprofit organizations in the community. For additional information, they merely click on the organization's website and link, ask the questions, and they're able to do their own research. Maybe they have questions. If that's the case, they can email our Resource Center and get a response within X amount of hours after the email being sent. We haven't really determined what that turnaround time is, but from past experience, it should be fairly quick. In the first phase of the plan, we are proposing a kiosk located either at the Oaks Mall, Thousand Oaks Library, or City Hall, or possibly at all three locations. At the kiosk, seniors, boomers, and the youth will be able to obtain printed material, brochures, or pamphlets of the nonprofit organizations servicing the Canal Valley. Long-term, we're envisioning a resource center at a location where the printed material can be picked up by the individuals. Not only will the printed material be available, but the center will be staffed by volunteers to answer any questions that they may have. These answers will be done by the volunteers we have. A dedicated phone line and a computer with a database with information regarding the volunteer organizations will be available to answer these questions. Right now, we're in the process of gathering and assembling this information together right now. Currently, we are working on our second phase of the plan. Our last meeting, we discussed how to spread the message of volunteering in the community. In this phase, there would be a need to coordinate a citywide advertising campaign, encouraging people to basically volunteer. There's lots of things that can be done out there. Not only would the volunteers be recruited, but at the same time highlight the health and economic benefits of volunteering. At this time, we have listed a number of ideas we want to explore further. We'll be doing that over the next couple months. Initial contacts have been made, and we're just waiting to hear back from them. This plan is not only doable, but it can be implemented at minimal cost, maintained and managed by a volunteer staff, and will prove to be beneficial to the City of Thousand Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Any questions of Chuck?
May I comment?
Please.
I guess you're not aware that the Thousand Oaks Police Department operates 3 resource centers, one here across the way at the Civic Center, one at the Thousand Oaks Library in Newbury Park, and one at the Oaks Mall. They're staffed by volunteers, and I'm sure that their resources might be able to be used by yours if you contact Barbara D'Angelo, who is in charge of the volunteers.
Right.
She's at the police station on Moore Park Road.
As we were talking about this, we were beginning to open up more doors, that things are available. It's merely getting everything really tied together.
Yeah.
So there's one place that people can contact.
Yeah, but these are facilities that are in operation, and you might be able to piggyback on them because they have set up already.
Okay.
And they're run by the city.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. That's what we're looking for, synergy. Yeah, we have two here. Go ahead.
I don't want this opportunity to get away from us to remind everyone who is viewing this TV presentation that volunteerism is extraordinarily important to the welfare of the city, no more maybe illuminated than this year when we are on the verge of catastrophe in some areas of care for seniors in particular that are going by the boards because there just are no budget monies for them. And last year was my epiphanic year, if you please, when I found out that volunteer hours bring about a value of between $5 and $6 million to this city, rated at $19.20 an hour. Now that is all the. Now 21.30 it is. I'm told by staff. Okay, so I got to break 20% more. Oh, I was right when I put my high parameter on, wasn't I? we're going to continue to have volunteers, but the management fact is that the same number of volunteer hours are not going to come, they're not going to be long-term volunteer hours. What this means for things like volunteers in policing is, and they require a year-long commitment, I'm told, that we are going to get our volunteer hours piecemeal. Getting volunteer hours piecemeal or fewer volunteers per person, hours per person, absolutely requires that we have some way of getting all of these cats in the bag, and that means centralization. And that's why I wanted to underline, underscore, and thank you for the work on this committee.
Welcome.
I want to just say one little bitty thing, Mel, if you don't mind. You know, in addition to the incredible value that volunteers bring to the city, we should point out, and you mentioned it, Chuck, the value to the individual. I mean, recent studies have shown that in addition to psychological values about, you know, feeling good about yourself because you did something good, it has physical advantages as well. People who volunteer live longer, happier, more fulfilled lives. So that's a heck of a selling point.
Absolutely.
Jim, Jim, whoever.
Yeah, just another thing, and I'm glad to see you're making such good progress on your thoughts on the kiosk, because I know in our transportation committee, we also respect the idea of how important it is with education and communication about what is available. So I know from the transportation committee, we certainly want to avail what you're setting up as capabilities to make sure that information on transit systems here as well as throughout the county are available at those kinds of facilities. Nice going, Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Nancy, please.
I know sometimes I have people say to me, well, you know, what do you really get out of volunteering? Are you sure it makes a difference? But mostly my husband's saying that, but seriously. But my daughter and I went to the Pasadena Showcase House this past weekend, and the home is a 50-room mansion in beautiful Pasadena, and it was left as a gift, a bequest to the American Red Cross, and they have since used it as their office over there. They do all their training there, they do everything there. And the guy that's giving the little spiel said, you know, the person who left it to them is a person who came over from Ellis Island, came over through Ellis Island in New York, and when people were coming over a lot from Europe, and it was, I think it's in the 30s or 40s, he said he was lost by himself, didn't know what to do, had no idea, had language problems. Somebody took him aside who was there and helped him to figure out where to go, how to get into the city of Manhattan, and what to do. And so many, many years later, this was a home that he bought, never even moved into because he had so many other homes. So he must have learned to do okay financially. But when he left his will, nobody knew what he was going to do. He left this to the Red Cross, which is a great organization, and they can certainly use it. And it was strictly because the person who helped him at that time when he really needed help, and he remembered all those years, was a female Red Cross volunteer. And so I said, I went home and told that story to my husband, and he said, well, you don't volunteer for the Red Cross. I said, Tom, it's the same thing. It's different. So there really are huge, huge benefits from volunteering. For me, I get tremendous amounts, and I think for some of the people that I visit and do, I also do. So I would really encourage people to consider this as an option as we get a little more free time. Thanks, Chuck, again, for your great job.
Thank you again. Speaker is not here, that's Dennis Wood, and along with Dave Grimm from the council. We're on the Transportation Committee. I should say, for speaking for Dave and for Dennis, that they actually reached an important milestone last month in that when the city had its study session on transportation, city council did, the folks that gave the presentation from staff actually cited 4 top priorities from the transportation team from their report, cited to the council during the deliberations, and the council not only took notice of that, but specifically factored those needs, those 4 priorities, into their considerations and into their discussion. So the ultimate goal for Council on Aging and Senior Adult Master Plan and all of that, and the entire senior community, is to get things before the city council so they can, in fact, deliberate on them, deal with them, and do it in a structured way, so that, in fact, the folks out there, the people that we advocate for, realize what we do for them and what they need to do for themselves. And so we're all really in the same boat together. So that's, and Dennis actually is, Dennis does work for a living, so we know he's doing something very important, so, but nevertheless we appreciate the work that he did and the committee. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you for encapsulating it, Mel, really about what some of the offerings, some of the work that has been done by SAMPIC Transportation is starting to show up in some of the consideration for the council. That was very nicely done, Mel. Thank you.
Thank you.
So anything else on SAMP, Mel?
No, except that lots of work to do.
Okay, let's move on to our liaison reports, and we'll just go right back to you for the VC AAA update.
The VC AAA update has to do with money, and it turns out Ventura County is a recipient of federal and state funds when the state funds are available to give to older Americans. In fact, I should point out that May is Older Americans Month, and it's fitting that there's a lot of things going on right now that will help the future of the senior community, not only here but in the across the country. The first thing is that in the Older Americans Month, right now there is a reauthorization of the Older Americans Act going on that's taking place now. Inputs being received in Congress and so forth. We have on the desk over here a questionnaire or an input form that you can use on the table in the corner on things that areas that you would like to recommend for the older input to the Old Americans Act, which will be taken up by the Congress sometime this year after they get a few other items out of the way. And and so if you don't have access to this form, you can call 449-2743 and receive one there, or you can call the Area Agency on Aging at 477-7303. Now, the Area Agency on Aging, the Advisory Council sent a letter to the Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Administration on Aging at the Department of Health and Human Services, and several pages. In fact, I signed it. And a number of important items that they need to get the attention that we put in to get the attention of the administration. For example, requires states to release federal funds to local area agencies on aging, whether or not the state has adopted a budget. There had been some delays because since the state hadn't adopted its budget, there was federal money sitting there, and supposedly the matching, the state is supposed to provide on a number of programs matching funds. Well, while the state is having trouble getting its budget straight, at least those funds should be from the federal government should be released, because there are people in this community in dire need of help from those programs supported by that. There is other budget work going on, and the California Association of Area Agencies on Aging, called it C4A, would like seniors out there in the senior community, or children of seniors, to do some lobbying on their own, and they can do that by the most direct way is to communicate with the chair of the State Assembly Budget Committee, and Budget Committee Subcommittee Number 1. The chair of that committee is Dave Jones. The telephone number is 916-319-2009. And he represents Sacramento, that area, and he's the chair. He's the chair of that committee. So, again, any information you want on that, on who to contact, or other advocacy opportunities, you would call the Area Agency on Aging at 477-7300. And I believe that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mel. Andrea, we would like to hear what's going on at the Goebel Center.
We have a ton of stuff. Glad you asked. Our first up, which was actually tonight, is Professors and Pastries, and it's the last one till fall. So it's at 6:45 to 8:45. This Saturday is Youth Stamp Day. So our stamp club will be doing free kits and giveaways and all sorts of fun stuff. It's really a nice day, and they get to learn a lot of different history as well through stamps. Monday, May 10th, we're having a Medicare workshop, so understanding your Medicare coverage and to know if it's actually working for you and if you're using it to its fullest. Then on May 11th and May 20th is a Social Security Internet class. This is really targeted for those that are just getting ready to retire or really have some things that they need to switch up. And so they do have somebody there. You can do all your retirement, fill out everything, have it on the Internet. It also keeps you from calling and being frustrated on the phone with a bunch of questions, because they can help you do a variety of things. It's free. I'll give the phone number to the center at the end, because we can only do 7 per each class because of the amount of computers we have in our computer room. Then we are going to be having a 9-ball billiards tournament coming up, and that'll be on Wednesday, May 12th, and that'll be from 9 to 4. So any of you out there who like to play 9-ball or want to come have some fun and some good camaraderie and some sort of barbecue, call the center, get on the list. There is a nominal fee, and it's $7, and that helps cover the lunch. And then May 14th, so that's a Friday, we will have Medicare Fraud Seminar. There's a lot of things going on there with that, so you need to make sure that you are get everything settled before, and make sure you watch all your bills and whatnot. Now, this one is very interesting. It's a volunteer instructor. He's done things for us before. And its title is Need More Money, Do the Math. So what's funny with this one, though, it's how to calculate your future market values of your house, calculate the effects of taxes and inflation on any of your investments, And this is the fun one. Improve your chances if you play the lottery, along with so many other topics. Couldn't figure out how that one is, but I'm sure it has something to do with the recurring numbers that over the years, so I don't know. And that's free, and that'll be on Wednesdays, May 19th to June 23rd from 12:15 to 2:15. Thursday, May 20th from 9 to noon, we're doing a horseshoe tournament. So come on, again, at $7, and it covers lunch. And then Memorial Day, we are doing a wonderful barbecue with the Senior Nutrition Lunch Program. So make sure that you sign up for that in the lunch program room, or call the actual lunch number and leave a voicemail at 381-2746. We've also got a new chess group that started up. That's on Wednesdays, and that's at 1:30 at the center. And so for any of these other fun things that I've spoken about, call 381-2744. If you want to email as well, lots of people do email us. It's gsac@crpd.org. So that stands for Global Senior Adult Center at Caneo Recreation and Park District.org. So just put all those together. We also have our website, and that's just spell out globalsenioradultcenter.org, and you can get there. We also have trips going on sale Friday, May 14th. We've got Hollywood Bowl, and it's going to be Friday, July 2nd. It's actually a really good show because it will have the fireworks, and it will include Vince Gill as one of the performers. We're doing San Manuel Indian Bingo and Casino Thursday, July 8th, and a Long Beach Aquarium Thursday, July 29th. So make sure Friday, May 14th, we start taking reservations and registration sign-ups for that. Also, a new group that started, but they've already met because they meet the first Saturday of each month. So they just met this past Saturday, May 1st, is a Post-Polio syndrome group. So any people that contracted polio years and years ago, even though you might have really recovered, there are syndromes and things that do start appearing as you age. So it's a really good group that has started that we're helping sponsor, and you can just go ahead and show up. So it's always on the first Saturday of the month at 12:30. And we did talk about a few things earlier. Generation Celebration, May 22nd at the Global Senior Adult Center. There'll be lots of different information booths, some really good seminars. Kiwanis is hosting our barbecue lunch, and that's only $3, so they're doing a phenomenal thing for us. You do need to register either through our nutrition lunch program or with us up at the front desk. You can do either or. And so you need to pay the $3, get your ticket. It'll be a fun day. Now, if anybody, besides coming and enjoying the day, if there's anybody out there listening and you'd like to be a vendor, we also have applications for that as well, so there's still a few spaces left. And Susan did talk about right the next day right after, it's Sunday, so you can have a full fun weekend, and that's our I feel like I will. We can definitely come to the pageant. She's gotten some wonderful volunteers. I've still got a couple spots left if anybody out there would like to help donate, because we do provide a light breakfast and a lunch for all the contestants and all the volunteers that are there behind the scenes putting it together, and those that are judging. So, because basically everybody's there from about 8 to 3:30, so it's a very, very long day, but it is very, very fun. So definitely come and support it, come and watch it, and then if you'd like to be part of it and help with some sponsorship, you will also get your name in the program if you do it soon. Yes, Jim?
Well, on the pageant, what time does the public portion start?
The public portion is at 1:30.
Okay.
The doors will open at 1. Tickets are $5. I have them on site at the front desk. And providing if they don't get all bought up, by the time of the pageant, we will sell at the door as well. I think that's why we got caught with not having enough chairs down last year, because I only did like 30 people over what was sold. So it was a really fun event. Anything else? Okay, I think I got it all in there. Oh, last thing. We've also got Canal Recreation and Park Districts. Let the music move you. Gosh, I can't get that out. Let the music move you. Those are all the free concerts in the park at the Canal Recreation Canal Center over off at Dover and Hendricks. So they've got some really awesome groups, very diverse this year. So make sure you get a flyer or call a center or look in the summer brochure. Or stop by the library or any of our centers and pick up a flyer. There's some really, really good ones in there.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to commissioner comments. Francine?
Could I just also announce the Senior Concerns Love Run?
You may.
Which is June 6th, I believe, on a Sunday. It is right in Westlake Village by Brent's Deli area there. It is a 1K fun walk for kids. It's a 5K and 10K. You can go online to seniorconcerns.org to register or come that day. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it benefits Meals on Wheels.
Outstanding. Okay, we're moving on to commissioner comments. Does the commissioner have a comment?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, Leonard?
First of all, Andrea, thank you very much for showing me Sophia once more. I was 15 when she chose Fellini instead of me. Broke my heart, and I just suffered pangs for the whole hour you spoke. Along the love lines, here, ladies and gentlemen, is a great chance at a really great date. Now, it's maybe kind of a guy thing, but what you do is you get all of the stuff that you wanted to get rid of for all year long, and you get it in your car, and you throw your significant other in there with a large cup of coffee each and a Cinnabon, and make your way over to Canal Creek Park South, and you take part in our annual recycle, throw it away, get rid of it, have fun day. Now, the reason why I'm making fun of this is if you haven't ever done it, the city and all the folks that are responsible for this do an absolutely outstanding job of keeping the lines moving, taking care of you, watching out for your concerns, and believe it or not, unless you get there really early like I do, because I enjoy sitting in line when it's really foggy outside, you can get through in about 20 minutes, even when traffic is at its peak. And there are a couple of things that you should know about. All of those ID theft items you have around, throw them in a box. 7 boxes to a resident. Take them, and they will have a shredder there, or a means to get that all shredded. And something I didn't realize, and I don't know when it came on, passenger or light truck tires, 4 per resident. That's kind of a newie. So anyway, you can do good for the city, good for yourself. It's not a bad way to spend the morning, and you can get out of having to buy breakfast because she or he will be too tired by the time you get done doing it. Anyway, on June the 12th, 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 p.m. in the afternoon, June the 12th, a Saturday, Community Cleanup and Recycling Day.
About once a week, my wife says to me, when are you going to get rid of those 2 old tires in the garage? And I said, I don't think normally Thousand Oaks, the day, the once a month, the first Saturday, apparently they don't do that. So you have just answered my prayers, okay? And my wife's prayers, actually. And speaking of my wife, I'd like to give my lovely dear wife Norma a belated birthday acknowledgement, which was supposed to come in April, late April.
Good job.
Late April, but we're not that far from the end of April.
Yes. This will make up for it.
And
Last year he said her age and he got in trouble.
Yeah, you don't want to do that this time.
what was that? Oh, no, I don't do that.
Last year.
Not for her.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did.
Got in trouble last year.
No, I didn't think so. But
Well, before we got on to the other fun stuff, and happy birthday to your lovely wife, I wanted to piggyback with Leonard. at the Global Senior Adult Center, we do recycle household batteries. Just don't bring us car batteries or big things. So people do that periodically, and they'll have a hard time getting rid of them. So just your normal household batteries. But we also now have an area, so if you need to recycle your cell phones. So we've got a coal bin, so if you've got a drawer like I do at home and you need to get rid of some cell phones, just make sure you clean off your information off of them or whatnot and put them in there, put the cords in there, you can put the whole thing. And what that'll actually do when we send a box in to the company, so because they do their thing, they'll either use it for parts or recycle or recondition them. We will get a check back quarterly, and so that's going to be a fundraiser for the Global Senior Adult Center. So if you got old cell phones, drop them off in there.
I need to go back to Len. I just realized that maybe you can help me out. On June 12th, we'll be over in Europe. So
No, Mel, I'm not going to take your tires for you.
Maybe I can bring them to the senior center. I also would like to acknowledge an ill friend who may be watching, Helen Rosenfeld, who is not feeling very well, and we just want to thank her for all that she's done. And she's a member of the Health Committee, Sampic Health Committee, and so hang in there, Helen, and we all love you, and see you soon.
Any other comments? Well, I would like to close with just a hearty hooray for having Dave Grimm back with us today. Let's give that a big hand, okay? If there are no more business before this council, I declare this meeting closed.